Hello and welcome everyone to this evening's event, Women and Online Television in Senegal. I hope those of you joining us online can also hear me. Seems that way. So we have a screening this evening and a Q&A with director Kalista Sy. And this is the first of 3 events. Firstly, we have this evening's one today at St John's College and then at the Department of Culture, Media and Creative Studies at King's College London. And then on Thursday, we have one at Rich Mix in London. So these events have been organised in collaboration between ourselves, St John's College, the Torch African Languages, Literatures and Cultures Network, and King's College Arts and Humanities, and the New Black Film Collective. First of all, a huge thank you to Kalista for accepting our invitation to come to Oxford and to the UK. And to speak about your work. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here with us. We are delighted. And thank you also to my colleague Estrella in the back there, who has been a driving force behind the organization of this event. We met a few years ago at the staging of the Cambridge Africa Film Festival, where I was volunteering during my PhD and Estrella was coordinating. And then we caught up recently, I think, at a screening of Suleiman Cissier's Figné in London. And I asked Estrella if she would be willing to perhaps share with us some of her work about the cinema of Senegal in particular, which is something she's researched extensively. But she suggested doing a presentation on something a bit more contemporary and also inviting someone who's directly involved in the production of African film and media and television. And thankfully, she knew Kalista, and that was the story of this event. And I'm so pleased that she could be here today. So just to give you a brief introduction to Estrella, who will be taking over after me. Estrella Sendra works as a lecturer in culture, media and creative industries education at King's College London. She's a researcher and educator with work experience in filmmaking and film festival organization. She's interested in bridging scholarship and practice and engaging in collaborations between higher education and the creative industries, particularly film festivals. Her main research interests are festivals, film, screen media, and creative industries in Africa and artistic research, namely video essays. Since 2011, she directed Témoignage de l'autre côté, an awarded documentary about migration, and she's been developing a regional expertise in Senegal. Since March 22, she is the co-principal investigator of a research project entitled Decolonizing Film Festival Research in a Post-Pandemic World, funded by the New Frontier in Research Fund by the Government of Canada. She's an associate editor of Screenworks, an editorial board member in the Journal of African Media Studies, an advisory board member of the ERC-funded research project Screen Worlds, which is led by Professor Lindiwe Dove at SOAS, University of London, and she's an advisory board member of Film Africa in London. And she's also the director of the Cambridge Africa Film Festival. So thank you very much, Estrella. I will hand over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that generous invitation. And thank you so much, Kalista. Merci beaucoup vraiment d'accepter cette invitation modeste à venir ici. Pour moi, c'est un rêve très vrai en fait. It's like a dream come true. And I will tell you why. I've been going to Senegal for a while now, as Alex was saying. And actually, there was a period in which I couldn't go, which was the period of the pandemic. And I read an article that was entitled "The Series That Breaks Stereotypes About Senegalese Women." And it was about Maîtresse, homme, marié. The series we're about to see this evening. And I just went on Google and I started to read so much about it, and I went straight to YouTube and I watched the first episode, and after a couple of weeks I was in episode number 39. So at the time I thought, oh, I had never been watched something like this, but what I really loved about the series was that I was recognizing on a screen so many strong women that I had been meeting in Senegal, and I was even recognizing myself. And I just thought it would be good to reach out to Kalista and hear more about her story. And she was so generous that she accepted to have an interview with me, which I then asked her to do again in a video recorded format, which became a learning resource for the course that I was teaching on global film industries. So students learned about the so-called African televisual turn through looking at the work of Kalista Sy. And this also allowed to speak about topics we will be talking about today, which is, for example, understanding feminism in an intersectional way, associating it with the opportunities brought by the technology. So I'm just really delighted because Kalista Sy has really opened my research interest to new fields that have taken me in so many different directions. And I'm very grateful for this invitation, Alex, and all the organization in this hybrid event. I know there's some people online following, so that's excellent. Thank you so much. And what I wanted to do is really to introduce you to Kalista Sy. Kalista Sy has just come back from Senegal, where she received 11 awards for her latest work. The one that has followed, Maîtresse d'un homme marié, that is really, I think, a climax in her career, because Maîtresse d'un homme marié, Mistress of a Married Man, is her first series, but it's not the first work that she has been doing. And just after Senegal, which is literally a week ago, she went to a meeting point in Lille, in a city in France, also a meeting point for people working in series. So someone who has really become, I think, one of the most famous serious filmmakers, and who has done that from such an early age and from such a woman-centered perspective. She's a Senegalese screenwriter, director, and producer, and she became very famous in Africa and beyond, following the success of the series we will watch today, which has been compared in the media to Sex on the City. And actually in 2019, after this series, she made it to the BBC list of the 100 most influential women from around the world. Aware of her leading role in centering women's stories on a screen with particular reference to Senegal, she enjoys comparing herself to American television producer and screenwriter Shonda Rhimes, stating she's certainly not Shonda Rhimes, but she has no less merit than her. The words differ as do their path and goals, yet they share a common struggle to tell stories that resonate with their lived experience. Even if she feels that she still has a long way to go, she's a determined entrepreneur, convinced that it is possible to play a leading role in the international screen media. She studied journalism at the Higher Institute of Entrepreneurship and Management, and as a graduate journalist, she joined various editorial teams. Today, she has her own production company, which is called Kalista Television. So the first series, which is Mistress of a Married Man, it's available on Marodi Television. And after the series, she opened one where we can now watch as well 2 other series, which are Yai 2.0, which means Mother 2.0, which is on the theme of motherhood. And there is another series called Hair Lover, which has to do with everyday forms of hostility that women have to survive in a Senegalese society, but also in ways that resonate to the whole world. So please join me in welcoming Kalista Sy. We will have a Q&A with her later. Thank you so much, Kalista. I think without further delay, we will start with the screening, and then we will have the joy of having a debate with her, where you are all welcome to ask questions. Thank you so much.
Just a reminder that those of you joining online should have received a link to watch the episode separately. But in any case, if you haven't, it is available on YouTube with English subtitles if you touch.
Hey. Right. Kalista, merci beaucoup. C'était génial de voir cette série à Oxford tout ensemble. Donc, j'aimerais commencer par te demander, d'après les origines de Maîtresse d'un homme marié, comment est-ce que cette histoire a commencé? Qu'est-ce qui a inspiré cette histoire? How did this story start, and what are the origins of this story, Mistress of a Married Man?
Merci beaucoup. Merci pour l'invitation, c'est un plaisir. Je pense que cette histoire a commencé parce qu'en tant que femme, je ne voyais pas mes histoires de femmes.
Thank you for the invitation, and I think it all started because as a woman I didn't see women represented.
Et on avait beaucoup d'histoires de femmes et des histoires très douloureuses, mais qui n'étaient pas entendues par les hommes.
We had many stories about women, but it was not really stories heard by men, really.
Et je me suis racontée en tant que femme.
And I talked about myself as a woman.
Et j'ai raconté aussi d'autres femmes que je connaissais, j'ai raconté leur quotidien. Et ça m'a surpris que ça ait pu parler à des femmes d'horizons divers.
And I talked as well about other women I knew and about their everyday life. And I was surprised to see how their daily situation was represented.
C'est comme ça qu'est née la série Maîtresse d'un homme marié.
And that's how Maîtresse d'un homme marié, Mistress of a Married Man was born.
Et qui est devenue aujourd'hui, je pense, une référence en Afrique francophone ou bien en Afrique tout court.
And that's why today it's considered to be a reference in Francophone Africa and Africa in general.
Voilà.
There you go.
Merci bien de partager ça et c'est ce régime et voilà, et comment ça aussi. She was also saying how much we can all recognize in this women, regardless where we come from. Maîtresse d'un homme marié a eu une longue trajectoire. Donc, 3 saisons. Moi, j'ai arrêté mon analyse à la fin du 2e saison. Et on a fait l'entretien de la première quand j'avais même pas fini la 2e saison parce que c'était pas encore fini. Et maintenant, j'aimerais savoir quelle est la place de Maîtresse d'un homme marié dans votre carrière. Après, maintenant, vous avez déjà des autres séries. Qu'est-ce que Maîtresse d'un homme marié a signifié dans ta carrière professionnelle? What has Mistress of a Married Man mean in your career?
Bah, on peut dire que ça a été le début d'une très belle aventure.
It was the start of a wonderful adventure.
La Kalista qui faisait Maîtresse d'un homme marié avec beaucoup de problèmes en tant que femme à régler.
The Kalista, who was the woman in Maîtresse d'un homme marié, had a lot of issues to deal with.
Et c'est en faisant la série que je me suis rendu compte que je devais raconter des histoires de femmes.
And it's by making this series that I realized that I should tell about women's stories.
Parce que quand les femmes me voient, elles me disent raconte mon histoire.
Because when women see me, they tell me, tell my story.
Et j'ai des femmes de partout dans le monde qui me disent raconte mon histoire de femme battue, raconte mon histoire de femme qui a été trompée, à qui on a volé de l'argent, à qui on a fait ci. Donc elles viennent en me disant raconte mon histoire.
And I have a lot of women around the world with different backgrounds, such as women who were in abusive relationships, women who were cheated on, and who asked me to tell their stories, tell my stories.
Parce que traditionnellement, nous, on ne raconte pas chez nous les histoires de femmes, elles sont tues.
Because traditionally, we do not talk about women's stories, they're kind of shut down.
Et je pense qu'aujourd'hui, les femmes ont besoin, par rapport à la transmission, surtout pour les générations à venir, qu'on raconte leur histoire.
And I think that for the upcoming generations, it is important that we talk about and we tell also the stories of women.
Quand j'ai fait, après Maîtresse, la série MIAI 2.0, ça a été pour des femmes de la thérapie.
When I made after Mistress of a Married Man, Yay 2.0, it was for some women like therapy.
Cette série parle d'infertilité, mais aussi de maternité. Comment il est difficile pour une femme dans notre société de ne pas avoir d'enfant ou d'avoir un enfant différent.
So it talks about how women, the difficulties that women face with maternity, with infertility, and how women are seen when they do not have children or when they have a different child.
Et deux choses ont marqué cette série.
And two things were really important for this show.
Beaucoup d'hommes refusaient de faire le spermogramme et ils disaient que le problème c'était les femmes. Et avec la série, beaucoup d'hommes ont accepté après 5 ans, 6 ans de mariage, 3 ans, d'aller faire le spermogramme. Ça, c'est un gros pas.
And men, instead of taking tests, used to say that it was a women's problem. And after the series, many decided eventually to take that test because it was not a problem.
Et aujourd'hui, il y a des gynécos qui sont spécialisés en infertilité, qui, quand les femmes arrivent, ils leur disent allez d'abord regarder la série pour la thérapie.
And some gynecologists, when they receive women in their offices, they say, well, you should look at this show as a form of therapy.
Je raconte les histoires de ma grand-mère, de ma mère, mes histoires et les histoires de mes enfants.
I talk about my grandmother's story, my mother's story, my stories, and also about my children's stories.
Parce que nos histoires de femmes sont des histoires très impactantes, en fait.
Because our own women tales are, have a huge impact, actually.
Thank you so much. I have a question that's related to that, and I think I'll just stick to English to keep it simpler for the audience. But I wanted to know, obviously, relationships between women play such an important role within the show itself and the storylines, but I wanted to know how your relationships were with the actresses and the cast and crew, the women surrounding the show as well. How did that inform the product? Is that okay? Yeah.
Elle demande comment était ma relation avec les femmes dans la production.
Oui.
On les a
Parce que les
Oui.
relations.
Oui, je comprends anglais, même si je parle pas. C'était une sororité. Ce qui est magique, c'est pas des actrices qui ont joué, mais c'est des femmes réparées qui ont joué.
It was like a sorority. What was fantastic about it is that it was not only women playing, but it was fixed women who were acting.
Parce que quand on a fait le casting, moi j'ai remarqué que les actrices n'avaient pas confiance en elles et qu'elles avaient beaucoup de blessures d'enfance. Et j'ai dû travailler d'abord ces blessures avant qu'elles ne puissent jouer leur rôle.
When I casted the women in the show, I noticed that they had wounds that had never been healed, and before shooting and before acting, I helped them curing these wounds.
Et je leur disais, vous avez le rôle de raconter des histoires de femmes. Donc, il faut que vous compreniez ces femmes que vous racontez pour que d'autres femmes puissent être impactées par ces histoires.
I told them that you're about to tell women's stories and you have to understand these women because you're going to have a direct impact on these women's lives.
Et après, quand la série est sortie dans le réseau, les femmes sont venues pour leur raconter leurs histoires.
And afterwards, in the next, after the series was broadcasted, women saw this, and they then decided to tell their own stories.
Jalika, qui dans la série est une femme battue, avec toutes les femmes battues qui sont venues lui raconter leur histoire.
Jalika in the series, who is herself a woman in an abusive relationship, had many women coming to her directly to talk about their stories as abused women in relationships.
Lala, qui était la femme parfaite qui a été abusée, a eu toutes les femmes qui ont vécu l'infidélité de leur mari, qui sont venues lui raconter leur histoire.
Lala, who was the perfect woman, but who's been abused because her husband cheated, had many women who suffered the same experience coming to her and telling the stories.
Et là, j'ai compris que c'était pas une série, c'était la vie des femmes.
And that's how I understood that it was not just a show, it was the everyday life in a woman's life.
Should we open it up?
Yeah, we would like to open up if there's questions at this point already, because obviously we have had a chance already to chat to her. So if you want to ask questions, please raise your hand. Yeah, Nikolai.
So what was the response of the men? The men
Les hommes n'ont pas forcément... Je pense que les hommes ne se sont jamais vus avant la série.
I think that before the show, men really never really saw themselves.
Et j'ai eu beaucoup d'hommes qui m'ont approché pour me dire « Waouh, je ne savais pas que j'étais comme ça avec ma femme. »
Many men came to me and said, wow, I had no idea I was like that with my wife.
Et la série leur a permis de comprendre qu'ils étaient dans l'abus par rapport aux femmes.
And the show helped them understand that they were abusive to their wives.
Parce que chez nous, on éduque les hommes en rois et les femmes en servantes.
Because for us, in our culture, men are considered to be kings, whereas women are considered to be handmaids.
Je ne l'ai pas inventé, c'est la vérité.
I didn't make that up, it's the truth.
Et ma grande satisfaction, ça a été quand des hommes sont venus et m'ont dit, grâce à la série, j'apprends à écouter et à mieux traiter ma compagne.
And the best experience about this series is that now when the men come to me and they say, well, it allows me to understand better how I behave and therefore how to treat my wife better.
Ce qui m'a marqué, c'est l'histoire de cet homme qui me disait que lui, il travaille tard dans la nuit. Quand il arrive à 3 heures du matin, il jette ses affaires, il réveille sa femme, il lui dit « fais-moi à manger ». Et quand il a regardé la série, il a dit, quand je suis rentrée à 3 heures du matin, j'ai plié mes habits, je me suis fait à manger, et le matin, je lui ai demandé pardon, parce que je me rendais compte que c'était horrible de faire ça. Je trouvais que c'était normal, mais c'est horrible de faire ça.
I knew a man who would work late at night, and at 3 a.m. when he would come back home, he was waking his wife up, he was also like throwing his clothes away. But after watching the series, when he came back at 3 a.m., he started folding his own laundry. He started also making food for himself. And then in the morning, he would apologize to his wife because it was bad behavior. And that's really satisfactory.
Parce qu'aujourd'hui, il est important, dans vos sociétés, les hommes et les femmes vivent ensemble. Chez nous, les femmes vivent avec les femmes. On les prépare à servir les hommes vivent avec les hommes. Et pourtant, ils doivent être dans la société. C'est une société d'hommes et de femmes, mais d'hommes, pas de femmes. C'est compliqué.
In society here in Europe, men and women mix together, whereas for us, it's a society where women live together and men live together, and somehow they have to mix in. So it's kind of really complicated to see.
Thank you.
So following that response, it appears that there is a sort of deep-seated sociocultural norms that constantly reproduce this sort of problems that women in these societies come from. I'm also from West Africa, I'm from Ghana.
Ah.
Yeah, so I'm familiar with some of these issues of constructions or constructs. So with your work, how do you navigate these challenges when you are casting, when you are bringing up an idea? How do you navigate these deep-seated cultural barriers, and what are the kind of fears that you face when you are subtly or head-on confronting them in the piece you are putting out there? And finally, is there a way in which this should not just be for grown-ups, but also maybe a piece or a way you could impact younger generation? Because I believe that when you are trying to use the art to impact society, one of the target population is younger people.
Yeah.
So how are you able to let this saturate across the broader society in such a way that maybe in the next generation that comes, you can see that a lot of people will be the product of, you know, this knowledge or this kind of impact you're putting out there?
Wow. Comment je fais ça? Je ne sais pas.
Première question.
Oui, la première question, c'est de savoir
les défis.
Les défis que j'ai, mais d'énormes défis en tant que femme.
huge challenges as a woman, for sure.
En 2019, quand on recherchait le mot féministe au Sénégal, c'est mon nom qui est sorti.
In 2019, when in Senegal we were looking for the word feminist, my name was coming up.
On m'appelle la féministe. On dit que je castre les hommes pour donner du pouvoir aux femmes.
I am branded as a feminist, and I am told that I castrate men to give women power.
Donc, je ne peux même pas me défendre parce qu'on m'a déjà condamnée.
So I can't even defend myself because I'm already doomed.
Pour ne pas m'arrêter, je continue à être une féministe, comme eux ils disent en fait, en racontant toujours des histoires réelles de femmes.
So in that way, I kept on being a feminist because I kept on telling these women's stories.
Et ce qui est bien aujourd'hui, c'est que quand les femmes, elles veulent des choses, elles mettent mon nom.
So what's good about today is that when women want something today, they put my name on.
Et il y a des mères aujourd'hui qui regardent mes séries avec leurs filles pour leur préparer.
And there are mothers today who watch the shows with their daughters in order to prepare them.
Et je pense que quand je regarde ma nièce, elle a 3 ans, mais quand elle ne veut pas quelque chose, elle dit non. Quand elle veut quelque chose, elle dit oui. Alors que moi, je sais que peut-être quand j'avais 3 ans, je n'avais pas la possibilité de dire non ou oui.
When I look at my 3-year-old niece, when she wants something, she can say yes. When she doesn't want anything, she says no. And when I look at myself at her age, I was not really allowed to say no.
Il faut dire que nous, on est peut-être la dernière génération à subir.
Maybe we're the last generation to go through this thing.
Et si on ne fait pas bien les choses, la génération à venir va subir plus que la génération de nos mères.
And if we don't do anything, the upcoming generation will suffer just as much as our mother's generations.
Si on fait bien les choses, elles vont être fières d'être elles.
And if we succeed, they'll be proud to be themselves.
Thank you.
Building on that question on challenges, I wanted to touch, and also the younger generation, I wanted to speak about something that relates to the success of this series, and that starts as a challenge and become a success. So in Senegal, mobile phones are very extended, while, for example, laptops are not really that extended. Maîtresse, homme, marié, it's a series that can be seen through a mobile application and through YouTube. And that's kind of crucial, but of course, it's not for free because you cannot just make something for free access. And Kalista addressed that challenge through product placement. And that product placement, as you have seen over here, appears at the beginning, sponsors of products from Senegal, but also appears throughout the series. And I find that this product placement is really interesting because it is also giving characteristics to this woman. It is also selling a made in Senegal label. So I wanted you to speak a little bit more about that, Kalista. In what ways is this product placement an opportunity to sell the made in Senegal label, where the kind of things that we sell as well are led by women? So maybe implied, I don't know, do you think that this is also giving the message that women are the future, the entrepreneurs, the ones leading?
Oui, c'est parce que j'ai voyagé un peu partout dans le monde et je vois que ceux qui vendent les grandes marques vendent d'abord aux femmes avant de vendre aux hommes.
I travel quite a lot around the world, and I see that the big brands, as we know them, first sell to women and then to men.
Et je me suis demandé, nous, l'Afrique, qu'est-ce qu'on a à vendre au monde, en fait?
And I wondered, us in Africa, what do we have to sell to the world?
Quand je suis dans des pays d'Afrique, je vois le savoir-faire local. Les gens, c'est des artisans. Ils savent faire des choses extraordinaires.
When I'm in Africa, I see that a lot of people handcraft a lot of stuff. They can do amazing things.
Et aujourd'hui, on a démarqué ça par Maîtresse en vendant des créateurs locaux qui sont des femmes pour la plupart.
And in the show, we have promoted that through handcraft things made by women, and so therefore promoted.
Elles font des habits, elles font des accessoires comme des sacs, elles font des bijoux, elles font beaucoup de choses.
They make clothes, jewelry, accessories like handbags. They do a wide range of things.
En 2019, quand on a fait Maîtresse et qu'on a vendu les produits locaux,
In 2019, when we started the show and that we sold the local products,
les gens pensaient qu'on était fous.
people thought we were mad.
Aujourd'hui, en 2024,
Today, in 2024,
tous les pays d'Afrique francophone achètent du Made in Senegal.
each Francophone African country buys products made in Senegal.
On ne peut pas avoir aujourd'hui une Sénégalaise qui n'a pas une marque locale, une marque sénégalaise.
There isn't today a Senegalese woman who does not wear a Senegalese brand.
Et aujourd'hui, en Côte d'Ivoire, la même chose est en train de se faire.
Same thing with the Ivory Coast.
Et je suis sûre que si la série entre dans les pays anglophones, ça va être autre chose.
And I'm sure that it will reach another level when the series reaches the Anglophone areas.
Parce que les gens achètent leur identité, quoi qu'on dise, hein.
Because people buy their identity, whatever we say.
Je connais aujourd'hui l'histoire qui se cache derrière toutes les marques sénégalaises et leur impact dans la vie des femmes.
And today I know the story behind each Senegalese brand, and I know about the story as well.
Cette marque, c'est une femme sénégalaise qui le fait avec des femmes qui sont dans un village. Et grâce à cette marque, les femmes peuvent amener leurs filles à l'école et les faire rester à l'école.
The brand of the clothes I'm currently wearing are made from women based in villages, and the money from these clothes allow these women to send the little girls to schools, and these girls manage to stay at school.
Donc, je ne fais pas qu'une marque, en fait. Je permets à des jeunes filles d'aller à l'école.
So I don't only create a brand, make a brand, I also send girls to school.
Aujourd'hui, dans toutes les marques, il y a un impact, mais vraiment dans la société.
Today, behind each brand, there is an impact directly on society.
C'est pour ça que je porte, j'achète, j'offre du Made in Senegal.
That's why I buy, wear, and gift made in Senegal.
More questions? Yeah, there's another one over there.
So first, thank you for being here. My friends and I are from Anglophone West African countries, and despite the fact that we may not speak French or Wolof, it's been, the series has resonated amongst us, so we're all in the middle of watching season 1 right now. When I look at your series, I see that it came at a very interesting time where there were other African women, particularly I'm thinking of Nigeria and Ghana, who were creating their own web series. So Abimbola Craig, who created Skinny Girl in Transit in Nigeria, and then I'm forgetting Nicole's last name, but she created an African city in Ghana. And so I'm curious to know how you see your work in this, your work and this work, and then also upcoming work in the larger landscape of African women creating shows, particularly for the online space, and particularly for their generation and maybe younger generations as well.
J'ai regardé un African City.
I watched an African city.
Et j'étais amoureuse du style, des histoires, de la série.
And I fell completely in love with it.
Mais c'était pas mon histoire de vraie femme africaine, en fait.
But it was not my story with real African wives.
Parce que la série raconte l'histoire de femmes qui ont vécu ailleurs et qui sont revenues au Ghana.
Because this show is about women who lived elsewhere and then came back to Ghana.
Quand on vit dans un pays, on n'a pas le même regard que quand on vient d'ailleurs pour revenir dans le pays.
when we live in a country, we do not have the same ideas than compared to when we've lived abroad and had different perspectives.
Et pourtant, un African City a été regardé par les Sénégalaises qui ne comprennent pas anglais, qui sont comme moi, qui comprennent mais qui ne parlent pas anglais. On a regardé toute la série.
And yet the show was particularly watched in Senegal, although a majority of Senegalese women do not speak English. We watched it all in Senegal.
Qu'est-ce que ça montre? Ça montre qu'on a envie de voir nos propres histoires, en fait.
What does it show? It shows that we want to see our own stories on screen.
Que ça vienne du Nigeria, de l'Afrique du Sud, du Ghana, on veut voir nos histoires sur le continent.
Wherever the country, Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa, we want to see our stories on this continent.
Moi, j'ai grandi avec Harry Potter, j'ai regardé Sex and the City, j'ai été influencée par le monde, sauf que je ne pouvais pas m'identifier à ce monde qui m'a influencée.
I grew up with Harry Potter, I've also watched Sex and the City, but it was not the world I grew up in. I could not identify with that.
Et je me dis, à l'heure où le monde se raconte, pourquoi ne pas nous laisser aussi nous raconter?
And why don't we let ourselves tell about ourselves?
Comme je dis, on a la chance aujourd'hui, que ce soit des Sénégalaises, des Ghanéennes, des Sud-Africains, de voyager, de voir d'autres cultures. Mais quand les autres nous amènent quelque chose, qu'est-ce qu'on leur donne en fait?
Us as women in any country, in Guinea, in Senegal, we have the opportunity to travel, but then when we go, what can we give them really?
Parce que si on organisait une soirée en disant à Estrella, elle va amener un plat espagnol, tu vas amener un plat sud-africain, il faut que je ramène un plat sénégalais, il va amener un plat ghanéen, vous allez amener un plat anglais. C'est cette mixité-là dont on a besoin. On ne peut pas venir manger tous les autres plats et ne pas ramener notre plat.
For example, you are to dinner party, and so you ask Sister Estrella to bring in something Spanish, Alexandra to bring something South African, and to bring something Senegalese. We cannot go be in a society where you do not bring your own part in.
C'est juste ça.
That's it.
Yeah. Questions over here? Yeah.
And also, just to emphasize, do we have any questions online?
No, but I don't think we can. I think,
What?
Let me just.
yeah, I saw some. I can't choose to send it to everyone, and I'm not sure if they can respond to me. So I sent a message, but it only went to the panelists. And I don't have the option of sending it to everyone, and I'm not sure if they have an option of
Oh, I
placing in the
see.
chat.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if they have an option of raising hands. But if there's anybody who would like to ask a question and you can raise a hand or put something in the chat, please do so.
I apologize for that. I'm not quite sure how that.
I think it's the webinar setting.
Oh,
but
I
don't-
see. Okay.
So that goes to that. I was interested in, I guess, kind of economics and the kind of I can't think of the words in English, identify, even in English, aspiration, the idea that, you know, these are beautifully dressed women often in gorgeous houses. Obviously, if we see this in Sex and the City, this, to what extent were you wanting both to speak to women's lives, but kind of in more beautiful form? Is that what you were aiming for, or is this, to what extent does being able to have the beautiful fashion and the beautiful houses, do you think that's part of the success?
Est-ce que montrer les femmes dans des belles maisons ou autres, est-ce que c'est ça qui fait le succès?
Et l'empathie. Empathie et
L'amour. Est-ce que c'est ça qui fait le succès de nos séries?
non, une partie de le succès parce que
Une partie du succès?
parce que les gens aiment.
Oui.
Yes.
Oui. Parce que, en fait, les Sénégalaises les Africaines sont très belles. Et elles adorent être belles. Ouais, elles adorent faire la fête. Elles sont tout le temps contentes, elles sont tout le temps joyeuses. Même quand elles souffrent, moi, ma mère, elle a perdu 2 enfants. J'ai mon frère et ma sœur. Mais ma mère, c'est une femme qui, les vendredis, adore être bien habillée, être heureuse. Tu vois, même si elle pleure dans sa chambre, quand il y a les gens, il faut qu'elle soit belle. On nous a éduqués comme ça.
African women are gorgeous. They love looking gorgeous as well. For example, my mother, she is always very, and African women in general, often very joyful and very jolly. And if I take the example of my mother, she is always like that every Friday night. She is always ready to look absolutely gorgeous. And although she's lost 2 children, my sister and my brother, she still keeps that joy in her.
Et c'est ce qu'on transmet, hein. On a beaucoup de résilience par rapport à la douleur. Et je pense que la première forme de thérapie pour les femmes, c'est d'être bien.
And we have a lot of resilience to pain. And I think that the first form of therapy for women is actually to look good.
Ce qui ne veut pas dire que, je pense que, ce qui ne veut pas dire qu'elles sont faibles.
It doesn't mean that they're weak,
La beauté, c'est leur force.
because the beauty is their strength.
On peut tout leur enlever, mais on ne leur enlève pas leur beauté.
They can be, they can have nothing anymore, but they will still have their beauty.
C'est pour ça que dans nos séries, on aime quand elles sont belles, quand elles sont fortes.
And that's why in our series, we love women when they're gorgeous, when they're strong.
On the topic of resilience, I think that one of the things that makes the series very successful, or that actually appealed to me the most when I first saw it, is that actually, I don't know if you noticed, at the beginning of the series, there is a voice, and we later find that is the voice of the psychologist. And it's a psychologist to whom Mami, the one we have seen in the enterprise, in the company where Maria and Angelica work, the one who is feeling unwell and the one who accompanies her to the lift, have that other colleague, and that colleague has also mental health issues and goes to see a psychologist. And that psychologist is also a radio podcaster speaking about women's issue on psychology. So I wonder, Kalista, if you could speak a little bit more about the importance of the topic of mental health and sexuality in this series. That was a window as well to speaking about how precisely these women were strong in that their lives weren't perfect. Some of them live in nice houses, some of them don't quite, and we start learning in each of these characters really dark stories and difficult past that we wouldn't imagine in their beauty, which is a source of strength. So why did you want to focus on mental health and sexuality to highlight the strength of these women?
Parce que avant, c'est pas pour faire du péjoratif, mais avant, pour nous, la santé mentale, c'était une affaire de monde.
Well, I don't mean it to be offensive, but for us before, mental health was matters of white people.
Et aujourd'hui, on se rend compte que la santé mentale n'a pas de race.
But today we finally realized that mental health is not something about race.
Et que peut-être chez nous, on avait tellement condamné les femmes à se taire qu'on ne savait pas que la santé mentale, c'était leur quotidien, le problème de santé mentale.
And for us, we taught women to shut up for so long, we had never really understood that they faced a lot of mental health difficulties.
Et aujourd'hui, les femmes parlent de leurs problèmes de santé mentale.
And today, women talk about these mental health issues.
Et aujourd'hui, il y a beaucoup, mais au Sénégal, je pense que depuis 2019, le nombre de thérapeutes, de coachs et autres a explosé.
And I think that since 2019, the number of counselor, therapists, coaches has exploded.
Donc, c'était pour moi important aujourd'hui de parler de santé mentale parce que même l'actrice principale de la série a parlé de son problème de santé mentale dans la vie réelle.
And I think it was important in the show to talk about mental health issues because even the main actress talked herself about the mental health difficulties she has to face.
Et ça a permis aux gens aussi de faire très attention à la santé mentale.
And also allow people to be more careful about their mental health.
Parce que chez nous, il y a beaucoup de tabous, beaucoup d'interdits.
Because for us, there's a lot of taboo and a lot of things that are forbidden.
Et je pense que c'était fait juste pour retenir les femmes.
And I think it was just to hold women down.
Parce que concernant la sexualité, on a mis énormément de tabous pour que les femmes n'aient pas accès à la sexualité.
Regarding sexuality, for example, we restrained women from knowing about sexuality in order to hold them down.
Parce qu'on dit à une femme, c'est ton corps, mais ça ne t'appartient pas.
Because we tell women, this is your body, but it doesn't belong to you.
Je pense que quand l'actrice principale a parlé de son intimité, ça a créé la guerre.
Même, they wanted to censor it for some time, some disassociation.
Because when the main actress talked about her own intimity, I think it created a war.
Et à partir de là, je pense que aujourd'hui, l'idée que le corps d'une femme lui appartienne a commencé à devenir une réalité.
And I think that today, the fact that women own their own body, I think that today is becoming more and more a reality.
Et ça ne choque plus qu'une femme ait une liberté sexuelle.
And it is not shocking anymore for a woman to have a sexual life,
Même si c'est pas recommandé.
even though it's not recommended.
Et pour les femmes aujourd'hui, tout est une question de défi au quotidien.
And for women today, it's all about challenges.
Et moi, ce que j'aimerais, c'est que les femmes aient le choix
And I would like women to have the choice
d'avoir une vie sexuelle ou de ne pas avoir une vie sexuelle.
to have a sexual life or to not have a sexual life,
Mais que ce soit leur choix,
as long as it's their choice.
pas le choix de leur mère ou de leur père ou de leur futur mari.
Not their mothers, not their fathers, nor their future husband's choice.
Et quand je parle aux jeunes filles, c'est ce que je leur dis.
And when I talk to young women, that's what I tell them.
Peu importe ce qui arrive, assure-toi que ce soit ton choix
No matter what happens, make sure that it was your choice all along
et sache défendre ton choix.
and be able to defend your choice.
Thank you. I think we just have a question online first.
Yes, we do. We've got a question from Dorothy, who I know would love to be here today. And she says, thanks for the amazing talk and the series. And can you comment a bit about these women's careers and their professional aspirations, the characters of the show? It's striking how much of the action, at least in the first episode, is happening in the workplace, and how all these women are formally employed, ambitious, middle-class women. Although I think one woman has her own shop potentially, but they're middle-class, successful women.
Dans la série, toutes les femmes travaillent.
In the show, every woman works.
Parce que en Afrique, en général, c'est les femmes qui travaillent.
Because in general, in Africa, women are the ones going to work.
Peut-être les hommes, ils sont, c'est normal, ils ont été éduqués comme des rois, mais les maisons, ce sont les femmes qui détiennent les maisons, en fait.
And although men were raised as little kings, it's actually women who are in charge of the house and of the household.
J'ai ici un compatriote ghanéen, il pourra vous dire, il est devenu ce qu'il est devenu parce qu'il y a eu sa mère.
There is somebody here from Ghana, and I'm sure he can tell you that he is what he is because of his mom.
Parce que ce sont en fait, ce sont nos mères qui ont fait de nous ce que nous sommes.
Because our mothers are the ones who made us, who created what we are today.
Seulement, les hommes leur ont demandé de laisser les hommes ne rien faire. Et si aujourd'hui, nous les femmes qui éduquons, si on éduquait mieux nos petits garçons, il n'y aurait jamais eu de problème.
And the thing is that we let men on the side doing their own things, but if we educated better little boys, there will be no problem as such.
Et je me bats aujourd'hui pour que les femmes éduquent mieux leurs petits garçons.
And I'm fighting today so that women can educate better the little boys.
Que les petits garçons cuisinent, nettoient et aident les femmes.
That little boys should cook, clean, and help women.
Ça paraît minime, mais ça change beaucoup de choses.
It doesn't look like much, but it changes a lot of things.
Parce que chez nous, les hommes, ils s'assoient comme ça et ils disent comme je veux ça, je veux ça, je veux ça, je veux ça.
Because men from our culture, they do this and they say, oh, I want this, that.
Et les femmes servent les hommes.
And women serve men.
Si dans un couple, l'homme autant que la femme participe, il n'y aura pas de problème.
If in a relationship, men and women are equal, there would be no issue.
C'est ça.
That's it.
Bah, il est d'accord avec ce que je dis.
He agrees with me. Do we have, I think we had another question. Yeah, I thought maybe we could just hear a little bit about the controversy surrounding the show, because we've heard a bit about that. What happened and what was your response at the time?
Moi, au début, je pensais que c'était juste une blague.
At first, I thought it was jokes.
Mais quand j'ai su que c'était vraiment sérieux, je suis allée me défendre.
And when I understood that it was actually serious, I just defended myself.
Et ce qui m'a marqué, c'est la Sénégal qui est l'organe aujourd'hui qui a la main mise sur la diffusion. Ben, le directeur, quand je suis venue me défendre, il m'a dit, on n'est pas ici pour se défendre. J'étais choquée.
And what was particularly striking to me is that when I came to see the Khadidiatou, who's the production, the director told me we're not here to defend ourselves, and I was very shocked.
Et il m'a dit, tu dois juste accepter les règles.
He told me you should just accept the rules.
Bon, comme je ne suis pas une personne qui accepte les règles,
And as I'm not somebody who accepts the rules,
j'ai continué à faire ce que j'avais à faire.
I kept on doing what I had to do.
Et je pense que aujourd'hui, beaucoup au Sénégal vont dire ah, Kalista, c'est problématique. Pas entrer dans ces problèmes pour la laisser faire.
And I think that today in Senegal, people are like, oh my God, Kalista, she's so problematic, just let her do her thing.
Et je me suis rendu compte, pour qu'une femme puisse faire ce qu'elle a à faire, il faut qu'elle parle fort, qu'elle ait la langue. Je suis désolée de l'expression, mais c'est ce qu'il faut pour exister.
And I realized that women, in order to be heard and to be able to do whatever they want, they have to have a big mouth.
Et je dis toujours, je ne baisse pas la tête en tant que femme. Quand je parle, je te regarde droit. Je n'arrive pas à entendre elle est où ma place. Je sais que ma place est là, je viens la prendre. Donc le plafond de verre dont les gens parlent, moi je ne le vois pas.
And instead of lowering my head, I always look up and I don't ask where my seat is. I know where my seat is. And the glass ceiling that people talk about, I do not see that because I get where I want.
Et ce qui est le plus difficile parce qu'aujourd'hui au Sénégal, je suis la seule femme productrice de contenu. Il n'y en a pas.
Because today in Senegal, I'm the only woman producer because there are no other.
Et pour éviter aujourd'hui d'avoir des manquements qui puissent... parce qu'on ne me pardonnera pas les erreurs qu'on pardonne comme ça. Je le sais.
And the problem today is that I will not be forgiven the mistakes, whereas men will, when men will be.
C'est pour ça que dans mon travail, je fais en sorte que tout soit normé.
That's why I try as much as possible in my work that everything has a norm,
Que tout soit clair.
that everything's clear.
Comme ça, si quelqu'un pense qu'à travers mon travail, il peut m'attraper, ça va pas être le cas.
Because if somebody thinks they can trick me in my work, it will not actually be the case.
Ça me donne aussi la liberté de faire ce que j'ai à faire.
It also gives me the freedom to be able to do what I have to do.
Et je le fais bien.
And I do it well.
And yeah, on building on that, maybe you could tell us a little bit more about what makes Kalista television. I mean, other than talking about women's stories, you are also employing women in this medium. And recently you were receiving 11 awards by the Direction of Cinematography, which is a section within the Ministry of Culture. So I wanted you to tell us a little bit more about the business model of Kalista Sy and its impact in Senegal, but understanding Senegal as part of the world, because you are also very connected to Senegal beyond the country of Senegal. And also, what is the impact that this series is having within the broader landscape of film in Senegal, because Senegal is a country of a long history of cinema.
Kalista est née parce que je savais que je n'avais plus d'espace pour raconter des histoires de femmes.
Kalista was born because I knew that there was no more space available to talk about women's stories.
J'ai travaillé avec un producteur qui, après, me reprochait tout le temps de vouloir libérer ou rendre les femmes autonomes.
I used to work with a producer who accused me of trying to make women more autonomous.
Et à chaque fois que j'essayais de raconter des histoires de femmes, il censurait en fait ces histoires de femmes.
And every time I was trying to talk about women's stories, he was censoring actually the stories I was about to say.
Donc, à un moment donné, j'ai décidé d'avoir ma propre boîte pour raconter des histoires de femmes.
So eventually I decided to open my own production house in order to tell those stories.
Parce que je savais que le même problème que j'avais avec lui, j'allais l'avoir avec d'autres hommes, parce que c'est les hommes qui ont des boîtes de production.
And I knew that I would face the same difficulty with other producers because all producers are men and there are only men in Senegal.
Et je me rappelle, je vivais en France avec mon mari et durant 1 an, tous les jours, on faisait des marches et on parlait du projet de la boîte qu'on voulait créer.
And I remember when I lived in France with my husband, every day we were talking about this project of creating this production company.
Et il a été le premier à venir à mettre de l'argent sur la table en disant vas-y, raconte des histoires de femmes.
And he was the first to actually put money on the table and say, okay, go on, talk about the stories.
Et quand je suis revenue au Sénégal pour créer la boîte, beaucoup de femmes qui savaient que j'étais là, qui savaient que j'avais arrêté Maîtresse à un moment donné, elles sont venues et elles m'ont donné de quoi démarrer la boîte. Il y a eu une véritable sororité féminine. Des femmes m'ont donné de l'argent, d'autres m'ont donné des décors, tu vois, d'autres m'ont donné tellement de choses en me disant, vas-y, raconte cette histoire, vas-y.
And when I came back to Senegal, there was a huge support coming from women, and it was a real sorority, and it was very touching because women gave a bit of everything, whether it was money, costumes, really anything. They were trying to give little bits of everything, and they were telling me, please go ahead.
Et aujourd'hui, nous, notre modèle économique, il est très différent parce que vu que nos histoires aujourd'hui ne parlent pas forcément à la masse, on ne peut pas prétendre à des subventions, tu vois, de cinéma. Donc, on est obligé de développer un modèle économique local pour pouvoir produire et rendre nos produits rentables.
And our economic model is not really the same as in everywhere because we have very local production, so we could not ask for bigger subventions and bigger funding from bigger corporations. So we have to do with what we have to do really. So it has to be all very local.
Parce que souvent, ceux qui donnent de l'argent, les histoires qu'ils veulent qu'on raconte, nous, c'est pas nos histoires, on peut pas les raconter, en fait.
The problem is that people want us to tell stories, but they are not our stories, so we can't really we can't really tell them.
Donc, nous, on trouve les moyens de raconter nos histoires.
So we find a way to tell our own stories.
Et aujourd'hui, on a le privé qui achète nos séries. C'est les sponsors que vous avez vus tout à l'heure dans la série.
And today we have private funds actually sponsoring our own creation, and that's the sponsor that you saw at the beginning of the episode.
On a l'immobilier, l'agroalimentaire, la téléphonie, les cosmétiques.
We have real estate, we have the food industry, cosmetics, etc., etc.
Et ça, c'est ce qui nous permet, d'un point de vue local, de faire développer notre industrie.
And that allows us, from a very local point of view, to develop our industry.
Et ce qui est fou, c'est que quand une production locale arrive pour mettre des centaines de millions sur un film, nous, on fait avec un budget minime. Nos produits sont plus regardés et sont plus impactants que les produits qui viennent d'ailleurs.
What's striking is that when you have corporations putting millions and millions and huge amount of money on the table for bigger productions, our own productions have a much lower budget, but we have a higher quality, and we're more broadcasted than these bigger corporation productions.
Pourquoi? Parce que juste les gens veulent qu'on raconte leur histoire.
Why? Only because people want us to tell their stories.
Et c'est ce qui fait notre business model. Et c'est ce qui nous permet aujourd'hui. On a créé tellement, on a nos propres stars. Avant, moi, j'étais Catherine Zeta-Jones, c'était ma star. Je l'ai jamais vue, je vais jamais la voir dans ma vie. Aujourd'hui, on crée des stars pour des gens qui peuvent voir leurs stars.
And at the time, today we create also our own stars. I used to love Catherine Zeta-Jones. I'm never, unfortunately, going to meet Catherine Zeta-Jones. But today we create our own stars, and it's actually possible for people to meet these stars in particular.
Je me rappelle quand, dans la saison de Maîtresse, ils sont partis en Côte d'Ivoire. Wow, tous les Ivoiriens sont sortis pour accueillir des Sénégalaises.
During series 2, we went to the Ivory Coast, and it was crazy to see that every Ivorian person left their house in order to see the stars of Mistress of a Married Man.
Donc ça veut dire que l'avenir ce sera avec nous. On va juste faire comme ce que tout le monde a fait, commencer quelque part, mais pour arriver quelque part.
So it means that the future is with us, because we started there. It means also that we started from somewhere and we're heading actually somewhere.
And today in Senegal, there are 2 women film festivals. Il y a Festival Film Femme Afrique et le Festival de Film de Recherche. So how do you see your work as related to the longer history of Senegalese cinema as well?
Le Sénégal, c'est un pays de cinéma. C'est le pays de Sendra Ousmane, de Djibril Diop Mambéty.
Senegal is a country that is very rich with cinema, that has a very long cinematographic history.
C'est un pays qui est très culturel. La musique, les arts plastiques.
It's a country with a lot of cultural facilities, with music, with paintings, etc.
Et en termes de cinéma, on a aussi été influencé par beaucoup de cinémas venus du monde, la France, l'Angleterre, les États-Unis, le Nigeria, la Côte d'Ivoire, le Burkina, l'Amérique latine. Tout ça, il y a eu des phases au Sénégal où les Sénégalais ont consommé des produits de ces pays-là.
And in terms of cinema, Senegal received a lot of influence from all around the world, whether from France, England, the US, Nigeria, Burkina Faso, even South America. So there were phases throughout the cinematographic history that all of these styles impacted directly Senegal cinema.
Et souvent, moi, après, quand je discute avec des gens, ils sont choqués, ils me demandent, mais t'es sûr que tu es né, tu es grandi à Dakar avec toute cette culture que tu as? Je dis oui, parce qu'à Dakar, on a toutes les cultures du monde.
And when I talk to people, they're always very surprised and they ask me, but are you sure that you grew up only in Dakar? And I tell them, yes, actually, I grew up only in Dakar because we have all these cultures already in the city.
Et aujourd'hui, les gens consomment nos produits. Ils consomment plus nos produits que les produits qui viennent d'ailleurs.
And today, people consume our products more than products coming from elsewhere.
Donc, ça veut dire qu'on est sur la bonne voie.
Means we're on the good track.
Est-ce que juste à ce qu'on soit connecté avec les autres pays d'Afrique pour faire de belles choses?
We just have to still be in connection with other African countries in order to do beautiful things.
Do we have another online question?
No, it was saying goodbye.
Yeah, I'm aware as well of time.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to take this chance as well to say that maybe we're going to close over here because Kalista has already been super generous and wish Kalista Television a really long life and hopefully as well with English subtitles because we really enjoy engaging with your content and we would love to integrate it in our film culture commercially and in our classes. So you can count on us for that. We're going to have over there a few drinks. We are also in the Ramadan period, so we understand that some may have to wait a few more minutes to do so. We have created a playlist over here, which is by Senegalese women singing on women's songs. So feel free to Shazam it, but also there are toolkits over here that we are happy to hand out right now. And we are going to ask you to kindly fill the feedback form and share a few words with us. Thank you so much, and please join me again to thank Kalista Sy for being with us today.
A generous chair. Thank you so much.
No, thanks, Alice. It's been a pleasure to be here and share Kalista's work. So, thank you. I'm just gonna play the music and then maybe as well we can take a group photo with our amazing translator who has done an amazing job.
Thank you,
so much,
Sarah.
Sarah. That was so accurate. Thank you so much.
Thank you to our online attendees as well. I'm going to end the call. Thank you.